Hello students. So today we are going to start solvency ratio. Okay. Now you have completed the liquidity ratio, and in the liquidity there are the two formula. First is current ratio and the other is liquid ratio. Now today we are going to start solvency ratio. Okay. And under this solvency ratio there are 5 formula. So first of this is debt equity ratio. Now see what is debt equity ratio. Debt equity ratio क्या होता है? So the formula is debt equity ratio equal to debt or long term debt. Okay, not only debt, long term debt upon equity or shareholder fund. This is the formula. Okay, now see what is long term debt. Long term debt means long term borrowing. ठीक है, आपके ऊपर कितना कर्ज है, कर्ज को ही बोलते हैं डेट. ठीक है, कर्ज को बोलते हैं डेट. तो अब आपको ये समझ में आ गया होगा कि व्हाट इज लॉन्ग टर्म डेट. सो लॉन्ग टर्म डेट इज बेसिकली अ लॉन्ग टर्म बोरोइंग्स. ओके, विच इंक्लूड सच एज बैंक लोन. ओके, नाउ डिबेंचर्स. This type of loan is known as long term borrowing. Clear? Now see equity or shareholders fund. What is this? Equity or shareholders fund means owners capital. मतलब ये है, सपोज कि अगर आपको कोई कंपनी खड़ी करनी है, ठीक है, यू वांट टू स्टार्ट अ कंपनी ऑफ सपोज 1000 करोड़. क्लियर? सो इट इज पॉसिबल दैट यू हैव 1000 करोड़ इन योर ओन पॉकेट or in your own bank balance. No, it is not. So in that case you will raising your fund from the market. Clear? You will raising your fund from the market, and for this you have to issue shares. ठीक है, you have to issue the shares, and the person who purchase your shares is known as shareholders, and that shareholders is basically a owner of your property, owner of your company. So basically equity means shareholders fund. Equity means shareholders fund. It means that it is the owner's property capital. Owners की capital कितनी है? So basically डेट इक्विटी रेशियो जो है क्या शो करता है कि डेट में टोटल बोरोइंग और आपके जो शेयर होल्डर्स फंड है, आपका जो ओनर्स का जो फंड है, उसके बीच का रिलेशन शो करता है. ठीक है, उसके बीच का एक रेशियो शो करता है कि कितना बोरोइंग है और कितना इक्विटी है. ठीक है, कितना ओनर का फंड है और कितना आपने लोन ले रखा है. आई बात समझ में? तो डेट टाइप ऑफ रेशियो इज नोन एज डेट इक्विटी रेशियो. ओके, now basically now let's see what is shareholders fund. What comes under the shareholders fund? Now in the your chapter financial statement, जो आपका फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट का जो चैप्टर है, जिसमें आपने बैलेंस शीट के बारे में सुन रखा है, देख रखा है कि बैलेंस शीट कंपनी की कैसे बनती है. ठीक है, तो कंपनी की जो बैलेंस शीट है वो कैसे बनती है, तो उसमें जो है आपको इक्विटी एंड लायबिलिटी का एक कॉलम होगा ऊपर, पॉइंट इक्विटी एंड लायबिलिटी, एंड इन द इक्विटी एंड लायबिलिटी द फर्स्ट इज शेयरहोल्डर्स फंड. ओके, एंड इन द शेयरहोल्डर्स फंड, दिस शेयरहोल्डर्स फंड इज सेम एज दिस. ओके, सो इन शेयरहोल्डर्स फंड what is included? first of all, share capital. The second is reserve and surplus. Reserve and surplus. And the third one is money received against share warrant. Clear? So basically, shareholders fund, this 3 points will be cover up. So basically, share capital. अब share capital is further bifurcated into two types. First is equity share capital. Equity share capital. And the second one is preference share capital. Preference share capital. Okay, this will come in the question. So ये जो है आपको हम प्रैक्टिस करा रहे हैं, ठीक है, ये क्वेश्चन में भी आएगा, इसलिए इसको समझ लेना. शेयर कैपिटल, इक्विटी शेयर कैपिटल एंड प्रेफरेंस शेयर कैपिटल. ओके, नाउ इसको नोट कर लीजिए, फिर हम इस पे चलते हैं, रिजर्व एंड सरप्लस पे मिटा देते हैं. ठीक है, चलो. आफ्टर दिस there is a basically a 2 points. There basically a 2 point. First is reserve and second is surplus. Now see one by one. What is reserve? So under the point reserve, what will be included? Under the point reserve, what will come under the reserve? There is general reserve. General reserve. Capital reserve. Capital redemption reserve. Debenture redemption reserve. ठीक है. So basically all these reserves are come under the reserve, point reserve. So general reserve and capital reserve is important, and this will come under in your questions, but these are not. Okay, now reserve is completed. What will come under the reserve? General reserve, capital redemption reserve, debenture redemption reserve. Now this surplus. What is surplus? Okay, so surplus means profit. Clear है? Surplus means profit in profit and loss account. Okay, surplus basically surplus related to profit in the profit and loss account. Clear? If there is credit balance in PL, it means that there is the profit. Okay, if there is debit balance, in PL, it means it is loss. Okay, so from the point of surplus, if the credit balance is given, so we will add. Okay, we will add, and if the debit balance is given, we will subtract. Clear hai? Now note this. Now let's see the question number 24. Now let's see question number 24. Calculate the debt equity ratio from the following information. Now there is equity share capital and preference share capital is given. Okay. Now first of all, calculate the long term debt. Long term debt. So what will come under the long term debt? Equity share capital is not a long term, preference is not, reserve is not, profit and loss not, long term borrowing लिखवाया था मैंने. So long term borrowing LTB लिख दे रहे हैं शॉर्ट में, LTB plus provision for the employee benefit. It is also provision for employee benefit. ठीक है, provision for the employee benefit. What is this provision for the employee benefit? Let's understand. So provision for employee, basically it is a liability. Okay, it is a liability, long term liability. ठीक है, basically it is a long term liability. What is this? It under this what will come, such as gratuity, pension, compensation. जैसे कोई गवर्नमेंट एम्प्लॉय है, उसको रिटायरमेंट के बाद हमको ग्रेजुटी देना पड़ेगा, पेंशन देना पड़ेगा. ओके, या कोई कंपनसेशन देना पड़ सकता है. तो ये सारे प्रोविजंस होते हैं. सो कंपनी इसको प्रोविजन बना के रखती है. सो इट इज अ लॉन्ग टर्म्स लाइबिलिटी एंड इट विल कम अंडर द प्रोविजन ऑफ द एम्प्लॉय बेनिफिट. ओके, सो देयर आर मेनी टाइप्स ऑफ प्रोविजन. ओके, सो बेसिकली only the term provision for the employee benefit is given. So it is also a long term liability. So long term borrowing, the value is 2 lakh plus 60,000, 2,60,000, and the equity or shareholders fund will be no. Under the shareholders fund, what will come? Share capital. But share capital is also of two types. Here two types of, both types are given. Equity share capital. Under the equity, what will come? Equity share capital. Equity share capital plus preference share capital. Okay. Now next, reserve. Only reserve is given. Reserve, and the next is profit and loss balance, and in the bracket there is accumulated loss is given. It means this is the loss case, case of the loss. So this is the debit balance. ठीक है, अभी लिखवाया था मैंने. So this is the debit balance. So you will subtract this profit and loss debit balance. Clear? Now the value is 3 lakh. Equity 3 lakh plus preference 50,000 plus reserve 1,60,000 minus 50,000. Okay, whenever the debit balance is given, you will subtract. If credit balance is given, you will plus. 3,50,000 160 minus 50, 4,60,000. 4,60,000. So debt equity ratio will be 2,60,000 divided by 4,60,000. 40 cancel. 26 divide 46. It will 0.56. 0.565 है, तो you can also write 0.57:1. Okay, let's see the answer. 0.57:1. It is your answer. Okay. Now, is it clear? So, your question number 24 is completed, and in the next video we will solve question number 25. Clear?